Hello friends, hello neighbors. In last week's video, I shared with you the adventure where I went out into the Arctic and recreated a photograph from 1873. The photo was of the Frambrian, a glacier on Svalbard. And by taking a photo 150 years after the first photo, I was able to visualize the impact of the climate crisis on a glacier in the Arctic. If you didn't watch that adventure, there's a link in the description below, and I suggest you go and watch that video first and then perhaps return to this one. In last week's video, I told you that I wanted to share this image with a scientist. And well, today I'm sharing with you a powerful conversation that I had with Erik Huss. Erik Huss is a glaciologist. Most recently, he has given lectures at prominent gatherings such as Stockholm 50 Plus and COP27. Erik Huss was also part of the Jubilee expedition, where him and I and a couple of other people crossed Svalbard on skis to bear witness to the climate crisis and to record a documentary film. Erik and I talked about the two photographs, the melting of the Arctic, and what that actually means to our world. Erik, morning, how are you doing, man?
Good morning, Jonas. I'm fine. I'm on the other side of the planet right now.
In these two images of Frambrian on Svalbard, I see something that appears to be terrifying to me. But, you know, I would love your input on that as a glaciologist. What do you see in these images?
The first part is pure scientific. I look at the lateral moraines, the end moraines, tremolo moraines, the thickness of the snout, the accumulation area, how high up are these streamlines and so on. That's one part of me. The other part is just human, like you. You get a bit shocked because you never get used to the speed, the rate of melting and how fast it goes.
If you were to just speculate, like how much of this melting would you say is in the last 20 years?
So almost half of the glacier is gone in these 150 years. And it was probably growing when the first photo of Axel Enwall, it was probably growing because it was still in the little ice age until another 40 years of growing. So it was even bigger at around 1910. And then it was a shifting climate that was started to melt a little bit. But then since the acceleration of emissions from humans in the 1950s, when we entered from the Holocene to the Anthropocene, then you have an acceleration for the last 70 years.
This change has happened in the last 50 years. Would you say that I'm more or less correct?
I would say it accelerated pretty much during the 20th century. But even though it reached now the snout is on land, I would say it continues to melt. And also there are these surges. So normally a surge of a glacier is when something happens with the dynamics. It can be meltwater that kind of lubricates the glacier movement. So maybe 1% of the global glaciers are surging. And that means that the ice moves between 10 and 100 times faster than normal. So, but on Svalbard, it's 25% of the glaciers are surging. And so it's really dangerous to be in Svalbard as well on the glaciers. Much more dangerous than other parts of the world.
This brings back that memory from the Jubilee expedition where we started off the first couple of days, we had minus 28 Celsius. And we finished at, I think, plus 13 Celsius.
They were shocked in Svalbard.
But we had to change our route 5 times, I believe, on the Jubilee expedition just because of what the weather and the climate was doing to us.
How much you plan, even if you plan a lot. Yeah, we had to change like twice before the expedition and then 3 times during the expedition.
Yeah. What is the significance then like? So we see this glacier melting. What does it mean?
The glaciers, they are balancing the snow and ice pack on this planet, on the poles. They are balancing the whole climate system to create a stable climate that we had during 10,000 years, more or less. Now, when this is disappearing, it's twice as fast because the albedo effect, the reflectivity of the snow and ice back to space balances. But when it disappears, it raises the sea level, and the sea is dark, not white like snow and ice. So it absorbs heat.
We have rising sea levels, we have changing climate, and basically we have a very, very bad situation.
Yeah, and our ocean currents are also changing because there's so much fresh water coming from the melting glaciers in the Arctic and especially Greenland. So the whole AMOC, it's called Atlantic Meridional Oscillation Currents. It's changing what we call the Gulf Stream, what has kept Northern Europe pretty stable. But it's starting to deteriorate. So,
what does that mean? When the ocean currents deteriorate or change? What
it means in this case? It means that warm salt water coming from Sargasso outside Florida, North Atlantic Stream, bringing all this heat up to the Northern Europe, creating these pretty temperate conditions in in Scandinavia. But since salt water is more dense, it's more heavy than this cold, fresh water from Greenland, then the salt water is getting pressed down in the ocean, heating up the ocean, but also stops the heat flux to Northern Europe. So a crazy consequence of this global warming can be that we have these super cold conditions in Northern Europe. Meanwhile, we have these desert conditions being created in Southern Europe. So we will have extreme differences, and we have extreme differences in climate conditions. You have this more frequent extreme weathers. So I would say this can create a crazy weather situation in Europe when agriculture will be more or less unpredictable and almost sometimes impossible.
Would this summer be an example of this? We've had, up to the 50s in Celsius in Southern Europe, and we've had basically enormous rainstorms in Sweden that we haven't seen, well, in the history that we can almost remember in Sweden.
The special thing this summer was that we had crazy weather all over. Huge wildfires in Antarctica and flooding, huge droughts, super melting of the sea ice in Antarctica. Never ever we have seen that before. So in the future we might say that 2023 was the tipping point of many these tipping elements on this Earth.
I just got this really bad feeling in my stomach when you said that. I didn't like the sound of that at all.
It's kind of just a reflection of what we see, and it's strengthened by the El Nino years also, with all this heat flux in the Eastern Pacific. They're giving extreme weather events.
Where does change need to come from?
Sometimes I felt like I would just like to stop the Earth. Some giant just says, stop the Earth, stop time. So we can all reflect. What are we doing? We are going in a crazy highway to hell. And we call it progress because we earn money. But what is money worth when you cannot eat food, drink water, or stay alive?
But how can we get there? It feels like we have meetings after meetings and they resolve nothing, and consumption continues as it is, and we have irresponsible businesses and politicians that do nothing.
The problem is also the media logic, because the media, they like catastrophes because they sell a lot of attention from their sponsors. So actually there are much more good things happening on this planet than we see in the media, because it's not worth, it doesn't have the same media value as a catastrophe. So bear in mind that there are things happening. I mean, for instance, many customers to me, they say, well, what doesn't matter if our company becomes, almost emission free in let's say 7 years, or in 2030. Well, tell that to Greta Thunberg, that one person cannot make a difference. She is affecting millions of young and adults all over the world, and even more each year. So I would say each of us have a little Greta inside us who can make a difference. So I would say, I mean, if you're about to drown, you're really tired, would you stop swimming just because that you know that people have been drowning before?
I heard someone once say to me, I don't remember who said it, but the person said, if the climate crisis was visualized with black smoke in the air, the problem would already have been fixed.
I totally agree with you, and I often talk about this abstraction, because carbon dioxide is not black smoke. No. I know even an energy company in Sweden, they were fined for greenwashing because they talked about climate and had this black smoke, and they had these carbon dioxide molecules. But I mean, they were right, but the smoke was black. Back to the glaciers. It's abstract for many people who don't know what a glacier is. Look at the pictures and then you see the difference. And that's human caused. It's not natural. The normal climate, the natural climate variation now is actually cooling down. From the mid-50s to today, it's cooling down. We have a human fingerprint of maybe 1.4 degrees. So it would be 1.4 degrees cooler than it is now. And that is pretty crazy. Then we would have stable glaciers, stable cycles, stable weather, much more. So we're putting too much energy in the system now. So for the simplest way, the best way is just to stop extracting and burning fossil fuels. So whatever you can do as a person, as a company, when you vote, choose the way from fossil fuels. Even if you have pensions or you have some money, take a look that you don't invest in fossil fuels. Because if for instance, for Sweden, the easiest way you can do, just look at your the capital that you have in pensions and other pension funds and stocks. If we took away the fossil fuel investments for the average Swede, you would decrease your own carbon footprint with 25 to 30%.
Oh wow!
Everything else untouched.
And that's a hell of a lot more than we can decrease by stop flying because we want to go and have a summer holiday on the beach.
Get this climate smart meter. There are a lot of apps. There's a good app called Go Climate, or Go Low. There are a lot of apps. Go Low. It shows it's free for everyone to use. You can compare to your neighbors and all that.
And it works internationally?
Oh yeah, it works. Yeah, they're working internationally.
Let's jump back to the photos at hand here. You know, I, as a photographer, I would love to give these photos away to see if anyone can use them. Is there, I don't know how much is being done to measure glaciers and to compare what has happened over the last 150 years or whatever time frame you pick. Is there any particular recipient that I should send these to, or what can I do with them?
Contact the University of Svalbard. They have a lot of researchers, and especially this Frambeen, as in northwestern part of Svalbard. They will be very happy to have these both to show for people visiting Svalbard and for science.
Never give up, because if you imagine a whale or a dolphin stuck in a ghost net, they never give up to get released, trying not to drown. So remember this, never give up, even how hard it is. Young people, politicians struggling for the right thing, never give up.
Very good.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and good luck with the movie and everything.
Thank you so much, Erik, and we will speak soon again.
Yeah,
Cheers, man.